Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Modern Business Operations. Today, I have the pleasure of hosting Karthik, the Procurement Doctor CEO. I'm really excited to learn about what you guys are doing and talk about what you're seeing in the market and how everything is changing. From my point of view, it looks like everything is just on fire. So it's exciting times. But maybe before we go too far down that road, hey man, thank you for joining today.
Hey, Sagi, thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure, and I've really seen a lot of my coworkers, friends, already on the podcast. So it's an honor to be here.
Nice, awesome. Well, let's start maybe by telling a little bit about yourself and procurement doctors and what you guys are up to.
Sure. So like you said, I hold the role of a CEO slash principal consultant. I get touchy with most of my projects, so I usually grab it in the beginning, sales, and then I have a nice team who takes it over from there on, and then I come in as a escalation point of contact at procurement doctors. Um, I personally come with close to 2 decades of experience within the procurement space. The procurement doctors team itself is a bunch of procurement folks who started their careers in procurement. And then somebody was crazy about Excel sheet. They took up the learning of data science. Somebody who's like technology, he's taken up on the technology side. So we're a bunch of folks with unique skills and experience. The difference we have within our organization is that we are first procurement and then technology, first procurement, then data, first procurement, then process, whatever you may say. So usually we speak the language of the customer. It's not like right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing. So that's the unique difference between in our company. And I've worked as a consultant previously, been the procurement guy, the category lead, all of that stuff. So all the fun stuff. And that's led me to this journey and start this company. It's close to 4 years old, and we got close to 35 people in our team right now. So usually people think it's just Karthik. It isn't just Karthik. You have a whole many more doctors. That's the reason you have a procurement doctors, not just procurement doctors. So that's the story behind that.
Nice. Well, I think there's an interesting angle of the way you described it of the procurement first, sort of like the business um, domain expertise first, and sort of like technology second, or then data center second. Maybe let's expand on this a little bit. I think um, I think there's a whole discussion now online as well of, you know, management consulting in general. Like, how do where's that world gonna go to, with obviously the rise of AI and whatnot. Ho- Let's talk more about that. How do your approach? How do you see this changing over the last even 4 years, right? The pre and post AI era.
Yeah, right now I'm seeing. So I see that eventually the a lot of the generic stuff will mellow down, right? Like the fancy presentations the beautiful charts and all of that you usually come and say that this is a unique methodology, 7-step process, a strategic sourcing process, or 5-step, or this is how we do the contract drafting process, and all this will die down or mellow down because everybody has access to the information. What will be left out is my unique experience, which I have gathered over the last 20 years, whether it's an industry specific one or my experience with a particular person who's been dealing with procurement in a particular way, right? So that experience, unless it comes back into the data lake, into the AI world, it's still stuck to us. And I think many more years down the line, even that also might get into AI. So that's what I see. I know there's a very bad rap on management consultants, whether you like it or not. They think it's just fancy presentations and all bull and not no real meaningful thing. And that's why I specifically call talking procurement first, is because a lot of the consulting firms, if you're going from a technology standpoint, most of them come from a core technology background, and they've been made to fit into this functional role or the current piece. That's why there's a gap, and the customer is saying something you don't understand it. So such people will be eliminated, which is a good thing, right? And the real crux of the people will be sticking around is what I assume this to be. And it's going to take a while. It's not going to happen like at the drop of the hat. So not as soon as, at least that's what my personal feeling is. It might take a while for it to go, because still there's people are questioning whether to use it or not. That's still happening, no matter how much you give them as incentive. And the other thing from the industry standpoint is, usually in the entire world of business, the topmost priority or the hierarchy is typically sales uses it first, then marketing uses it, then maybe operations where they want to have robotic arms or something else. Then it could come to procurement and then legal. So this is how finance may be a little ahead of that, right? So that's how, what do you say, it depends on the risk appetite of each of the departments. So you'll see more maturity in the sales and marketing side. Here it's going to take a while, because we don't want to be burning our hands. So, or we want to be just safe, or let them do it, let me check it out. So that's the thing. It's more out of FOMO that people get into it, which is unfortunately not the right way to get into it.
No, for sure, and yeah, it's it's always interesting to see whether all technologies are going to follow the same structure, or there some situations where there's leapfrogs. But maybe we zoom out for a second. So you've spent a couple decades on this, and you decided to start the procurement doctors. What is the gap in your mind? How does that how does the industry, not only in the last 2 years, right? There was multiple waves in the last 2 decades where procurement was was thinking, okay, everything's gonna change now. Anything you can talk through that?
Yeah, sure. And I don't want to sound condescending or negative, you know, but I'll because not many people talk about this, the reality. Okay. And whether you like it or not, when compared to many of the other departments or industries within an organization, procurement is very unstructured. Like, you have a standard balance sheet that the rules apply globally, apart from the Middle East a little bit, right? But those rules also are defined. For instance, you're using Sharia law or whatever, there's some difference out there. There's rules around there. On the procurement side, maybe 60-70% is similar, but then everybody else, there's no standard savings methodology or whatever. So there's always going to be that kind of a difference in procurement. So I don't see it getting into a level playing field unless everybody comes on together, or there's one unified force, or where people want to run their procurement process a particular way, have the people within procurement at a certain maturity level, the data also, if there's a particular standard, right? And technology is still okay. If these three things are working fine, then the technology also automatically becomes much more standardized. And then we could leave room for the category differences, but at least we should try to come to get to some place whether and have those abnormalities in terms of a region or a category or the type of buy or all those kind of fun stuff. So we can play around that. That's where I see it predominantly. And the other piece I'm seeing within procurement is every couple of years, there's a trend that comes. 3 years ago, it was ESG, then there was process orchestration, then there was something else. And it's driven by a big, research organization or whatever. And then everybody runs behind that shining object and they drop what they're doing in between. So that kind of is not giving enough time for procurement to prepare, neither the technology providers as well. It's like I was building something really which mattered a lot 2 years ago, but all of a sudden that's out of the pipeline. Now I'm taking up a new sprint cycle and trying to build something which sells more. So that's unfortunately what's happening, and it's hurting the technology guys, but also the procurement people also. The technology is running much more faster than their own knowledge or their expertise in that piece. That's what I see as a major gap. And the other pieces, not many people talk about the basics, which I told about: the people, process, data, technology. They're more so they're thinking of technology like a silver bullet or a magic vaccine that will cure everything. And unfortunately, it's been spoken that way as well by many leaders, just to be able to be more sellable or whatever may be the case. So that's happening a lot as well. So These are the few things that come to my mind.
Do you think the difference? So there's two concepts here you talked about. One is that the procurement is more in structure than others. That's interesting to double click on. But then also that people sort of like dropping whatever they did 2 years ago and are now trying to do kind of something different, and then they keep doing that. I wonder how much of it though is because the market, the type of work that procurement are doing is extra, it really depends on global trade, on externalities, on things that that yeah, you're right. Maybe like environmental concerns were a thing a few years ago, but like maybe they're not anymore. Uh, and they change priority more. There's maybe less control of what will be important. What do you think about that type of idea?
So, yeah, there are a couple of ways to tackle this. One is ESG is needed no matter what, right? And AI might help with the ESG piece. Taking that particular example uh, to start with, right? Regardless of ESG, process orchestration, or whatever may be that trends that you're having, uh, the one basic thing is you need to have your ducks in line. One is to have all these basics done right. Then you can think of whatever the next latest trend is. Rather jumping on the latest trend, just look at these aspects. Once these aspects are fixed, then whatever technology, whatever process, whatever you're picking up will work efficiently. So that's where I see predominantly the gap. I know there's certain things that are driven by the market, and most people, there's a famous saying that the market has a way of correcting itself, right? It will die down if it is not that important. But I feel that there may be some bit of a what do you say, artificial push from sometimes, which is kind of uh, I've seen a lot of nice startups which working on a core issue, but they ended up becoming kind of a Frankenstein's monster because they keep wavering around, and it could also attribute to leadership or vision or whatever, maybe many other things. But at the end of the day, you want to sell as well, right? As a procurement technology, it's not like you're sitting here and you want to solve one issue and no one cares about that issue. So it's a problem all around. It's not just
Yeah.
one way to fix it.
Yeah, no, and I guess my kind of question was trying to focus less on the technology provider side of it, because there's like you said, the market will create demand, and then someone, just in capitalistic world, someone would try to solve that demand in order to to create a business. I guess my point, what kind of piqued my interest when you were talking about um sort of the unstructuredness, uh and then the kind of like rapid change. Like, do you think procurement needs to start to, we talk about procurement here, obviously this is where you guys coming from, but I do think this is related to other departments too. I I do think that there are a lot of folks, there's a lot of like business functions that traditionally was built and defined in a certain way, that I'm not sure if they're fully aware of like what is their core business, what is the thing that they do that no one else can do. Sales is easy, engineering is like there's few that are easy. Your job is to sell, close deals. Your job is to build whatever it is that you're building or researching. Even marketing, finance, legal, procurement, compliance, security. We can go on and on. Like the definition needs to be solid when everything around you changes. I've been talking to a lot of folks in sort of those internal type of areas, and procurement especially, where I gotta be honest, I don't even know that there is a clear definition, right? If you ask someone on the street what does procurement does, they might say, oh, they're trying to save money. They're trying to negotiate money. But then procurement people are like, whoa, 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 we're not trying to save money only.
You're
We
not just saving, doing
exactly,
something
we're
else.
not just saving with this, but like what is that other thing? Like that other thing needs to be very well defined in order for the rest of it to not kind of like change your direction all the time.
Absolutely. So I know I kind of went into a rabbit hole towards the procure tech side. But on the procurement side, I think a couple of things they could do to understand, to better prepare for themselves, or how they can attack this rapid change, is to have a very unbiased self-assessment of where they stand, uh, and and the way they stand would mean looking at every aspect of how they do business, and this could apply for other businesses or divisions as well. But since I am on the procurement side, it's basically a simplistic maturity assessment or self assessment, which will tell you how good is your procurement process. Are you currently doing it completely manual? Is the invoicing bit manual? Are you doing it via email? Are you doing it through? Is there a tech behind it? Are you getting feedback from your suppliers? Are you getting feedback from your finance team? You're getting feedback internally in your stakeholders. That's the people piece. So you get that feedback. Then you look at the process and you look if this process is decent enough, how good, bad, or ugly it is. So you give it a rating. And then similarly, I could do it for contracts. I could do the supplier piece. I could do the strategy sourcing piece. And then once you understand this, you don't need to necessarily hire me or a consultant or whatever. You can have someone who's an intern right out of college because they have a fresher set of eyes, and make them go through this exercise to at least, because you doing the same thing for a long time, you might be blind, it might be a blind spot. Even if you came in a new role as a CPO or someone else, you would try to replicate that process to what you did in your previous company. So this is one simplistic way to prep yourself and understand how are you, right? Because once you have the policy process aligned, then the data out, and that should align to your technology. So the data output is also pretty decent. And then you could look at AI on top of it because it works well, right? And if you have technology, then integration and all that stuff also should work well. So that's what I see as a starter kit or something to prep yourself for this rapid change for procurement teams.
I think the self audit is very, very, very practical. I agree with that. What do you think about? So one thing that people like to say, we want to be more strategic. We want to have a seat at the table. How would you define? How would you define a strategic procurement team or like a function? Like what makes it strategic?
Yeah. Not that we call procurement doctors, but that's something that I keep talking to my clients. You should basically be like a doctor and imagine your stakeholders, everyone else, as a patient, or you should have a consultative approach. According to me, it's not just about saving the money or blindly driving value. It's more so to understand where they're coming from, and then basically partner, and that's how slowly you will get into the what do you say, into the inner circle of potentially look at a strategic partner, right? That's how you start off things. And seat at the table, it depends. In certain industries, procurement is reporting into finance. Certain industries, they're reporting into operations. Certain industries, you have a CPO going into the CEO. So you might have different strategies when you're reporting into each of these organizations, right? What I've seen more so gigs where I worked previously, where we reported into the CEO, but then we switched into the CFO because they took a different direction. And you huge disconnect between these two departments. They think that procurement was always trying to sneak through savings or whatever in the grand scheme of things. And finance doesn't see the value because they don't see the thing hitting their balance sheet. They don't see the numbers change, right? So that's a big question mark if you're having that as an issue. So that should be cleared. And it's all overall a mindset change or a cultural change for you to get into the strategic piece. And you should be able to influence the big decisions in the organization, whether it's also your building up your inventory, how you're preparing for your next year's sales strategy. Also be able to work with your end user, the business departments, to work with them personally on the technical side, right? You should be able to influence the quality parameters or even suggest, or they should feel that, yeah, this guy understands what I'm talking in terms of what I'm building, right? So it works out all different ways. Overall, you being approachable is one big deal, and people not being just a guy who dictates the policy and tries to bring savings. That's not going to help out from a strategy from standpoint. And it's slightly different in each industry. So that's what I have as a. I told a lot of things, but that's what comes to mind, my friend.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think that's helpful. So if we kind of like go back to a little bit sort of what you're seeing right now with your clients and just kind of like looking in the industry, in that latest wave, what are some good examples of how people need to think about it? There's something I'm hearing a lot about. There's stress around it. There's excitement around it. When people were trying to figure out like how to go about it, like when it comes to AI, when it comes to agents, on a personal level, what does it mean for my job? On an operational level or sort of like department level, how do you go about investing in it? So you mentioned, the internal audit is sort of like baseline. You need to know kind of like what you have, what you don't have. But what are some good sort of tips and maybe like success stories that you have of things you guys have worked with clients and kind of figured out where to invest?
For sure, man. So, um, I'll tell you a failure story that I had while trying to do this 4 years ago. Someone and out of that, I'll take out the learnings and I'll tell you how it worked out. Okay, around I think 4 years ago, when it was pretty early on, and there was a procurement technology, and we were trying to have bots around it to automate a lot of the tasks that us humans were doing. Okay, and they they we went ahead and, like you said, right, the audit or the self assessment or the diagnostic assessment was the baseline that has to be done, without which taking this step would be kind of disastrous, is what I say. Is because there's unrealistic expectations, the adoption piece, a lot of pieces get it. So this particular client, they went ahead and automated the strategic sourcing piece, whereby right from there's a requisition that gets hit. On the requisition, we have a form. That form dictates what kind of a workflow gets triggered, and there's certain things where the you go in and check in with all the suppliers on a particular website to see if the supplier is validated against a particular law. All those kind of fun stuff we did, and they spent quite a bit of money 4 years ago because all tech was not ready with APIs or whatever to uh, to take up something new, but they were rushing into it because the world was getting towards agentic AI or the robotic process automation piece or whatever. And they tried after like 6 months, uh, all of it worked, whatever they had as use cases or whatever it worked. But people stopped using it because the maintenance or the CEO aspect of managing the entire thing was more cumbersome. That's how it eventually failed. But a couple of things that I saw that happened there was, and this happens a lot in the North America region, the leadership changed, the priorities changed, and the entire thing, the money was down the drain. So we should have someone at a senior leadership who's still uh, pushing for this agenda or objective, not just every time there's somebody new, the entire thing reshuffles. So that's what happens. And most of the big companies in the US go through the cycle every couple of years. So that's how that got stated. And there were many other issues in terms of the data or people not bringing on board and all that stuff. So kind of that killed the entire project. Um, that's from there, I see a lot of it made me better as well because it was my first a project on the robotic process, and it went live. I got my money paid. They used it for close to 8-9 months, and then I went back for feedback. This is what happened. So the other thing that I'm working with a few CPOs in the Middle East as well as in the States is or the agentic bots is basically having a GCC or a center of excellence, which is an amalgamation of agentic bots, whether it's a contract agent, procurement agent, invoice agent, supplier agent that are delivering specific uh, uh, tasks, right? And we are pre-building the use cases because we understand procurement. And then like that diagnostic assessment or whatever we do in the beginning, right? That kind of gives you the differences in the process or the uniqueness about that industry, that process, and that's where we will apply that to the agents whether it's searching for a contract, creating a contract, finding an NDA, closing out all your contracts that are expired. It's checking, applying it against the spend and when was the last invoice paid. Then it's making a decision whether the contracts need to be there or not, right? So all that kind of fun stuff. And so it's a layer of bots. And there's a lot of always a kind of a people are not everybody is on board that I want to use a bot or an agent. Right? So to kind of help with the adoption, we would give the person an option at least for the first 6-8 months to talk with the person or chat with the person through that if possible, and that would again further enhance the data lake to make things better in the. So we'll have one layer of simplistic agentic bots, and then we have few at a higher level where we have a contract expert, a legal paralegal guy, we have a negotiation guy, a data science guy who have their own bots. Leadership has their agentic bots. So those kind of things. So it's going to be layers of bots and humans put together to make. And we intend to do this from ground up on the scratch. Right now, what's happening is a lot of center of excellences filled with headcounts, and they're trying to apply this on top of that, kind of like a legacy system trying to apply bots. So it's happening with the humans as well. So I'm trying to do one use case where, and I have like 2 or 3 customers who are working with me on this, but we haven't really nailed down the business case or so to say. So that we are in the process of that. So that's something really interesting, and I see that it's going to be a tough one. But once we have a good success rate, right, then it'll be much better for all of us. And the important thing I keep telling to these guys is expectation setting, because the intelligence will grow over a period of time. It's not going to be 100% day one. So that's something that I keep trying to nail down over and over again to these guys. So that's the thing.
It's very interesting to see where that center of excellence concept goes with everything we discussed. At the end of the day, you kind of mentioned the robotic process automation, which is sort of like the old technology, that had a lot of promises and wasn't as good on delivering those for many different reasons. Not only one thing, but whether that new wave is gonna hold on or not. I do think it's interesting what you said about people also changing jobs. Leadership changes every couple of 2-3 years, and then everything changed with it. I think the things that remains are the areas where this wasn't like a side thing, when something becomes just a
Priority.
a priority and a big part of what we do, right? So for example, like it still can always go away. We talked about marketing and sales earlier, so let's take an example. Like let's say you have a whole operations around going to conferences, right? This might change a little bit in priority here or there, depends on the leadership. But unless it's completely going away, unless like someone says we do not spend on conferences anymore, the things you have around it are gonna stay. This is just one example, right? And obviously, so on and so forth. So there's always that risk, but the risk is much higher when it's a side thing, which is always my issue with center of excellence. Is really really important to the beginning, but long term, how much the methodology, not only the technology, the methodology is just a part of how an organization work, and kind of like what is the core value that it provides to kind of survive those changes, externalities, internal. That's super interesting. I think there's a lot of practical things there too. Maybe we can end in on a more of a personal level, right? You've kind of went through different things. You jump into the water, starting your own business. It's always exciting and always very hard for those of us who've done it. But what is maybe the personal advice you got early in your career or in your life that you feel like it's worth paying forward?
Yeah. So I've had this great mentor, leader, whatever you may say, right? He's been there from, he's the guy who pulled me into procurement or threw me on the dark side of the water where I learned how to swim, right? And back then, India has always had a bad attrition problem. This guy is from the US, very traditional guy who joined his job right out of college, and he's never left. He retired after that. So That's a nice old traditional guy. And in India, and all across the world right now, there's a lot of people who just keep hopping until they're satisfied, and in India also, that back then, this is back in maybe 2002, 3 or 4, around that time. So he made this amazing statement. He made a big address to the entire service center in India, which I was part of the setup and all that. And he told that we should learn as humans to grow in breadth before we grow in length, right? So that you don't break and fall off if the trunk is not strong enough. And that stuck to me. And I think that applies to even AI agents, everything else. You see, if the knowledge is not strong enough, it will just grow tall really quick and it'll fall off. That may be also called as the market rejection or whatever may be the case, you know. So it's important to have a nice wide thick base which would support the overall uh, height or the length that you're going to grow. And I've used that as an example. I've bored my team to death with telling that over and over again, but it's applied to me personally a lot. So that's one advice that stuck to me.
I like it a lot. Very good. Awesome, man. Well, this was awesome, really fun. If someone wants to reach out or talk to you, where can they find you guys?
Oh, I'm most of the time on LinkedIn. My wife is usually angry that I'm all the day on LinkedIn. And you could also email me at karthikr@procurementdoctors.com. So that's the other place that you could reach out to me. So on LinkedIn, I go by Karthik Rama, and you should find me. I under Procurement Doctors as an organization. So I'd be glad to help out. It's a pleasure being in this community, and I love talking to people and keep learning. It keeps changing. No 2 days are the same. So hit me up. I'd be glad to have a chat with you.
Very good. Awesome, Catherine. Thank you so much, man. And thank you for joining me today.
It's a pleasure meeting you, man. Thank you. Thank you for having me on. Take care.